Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another quick and dirty redstone episode with me, Brutal Cubes, and my giant bamboo that is just growing out of that farm, wild and uncontrolled because farms are off. Anyways, today we are talking about all kinds of fantastic, that's right, fantastic redstone circuits. Do you know what they do? They do math. Who doesn't love math? So, what is the point of all these things? Well, if you remember last time, fly over here, we have this here hopper clock, and it outputs a signal that is a steady signal. It never turns off until it moves on to the other side, for as long as it is there. Sometimes you want not a steady signal, but a pulse to happen every so often, such as with this. There are other clocks that can do that, like this one, that when you engage it, it pulses like a madman. But maybe you want your pulses to happen once every 5 minutes and not once every eighth of a second or whatever that is. So we have solutions. The first solution is something you might know from real life. It's a circuit breaker. Uh huh. Uh huh. See, it's staying steady, but the light only blinked once. Very good. So it's a very easy one. You just run your redstone line into a block on top of a sticky piston, put a repeater at the end of it, take your output. If you change the repeater signal, let's go all the way. Let's do it one more time just for an example. Regular. If we put the repeater all the way, see that light stays on considerably longer. So it's somewhat adjustable, and for every additional repeater you put on the end of it, it'll go longer and longer, and so it'll take longer to turn on, and it just makes math. Math, it's math. The next one we have is very similar. It's I mean, I guess it's also a circuit breaker. When you turn it on, the redstone signal is going to come through here. It's going to power this line. Light's going to turn on, but just right after, it's also going to pass through this repeater and and extend the piston. And when it extends the piston, the light's going to turn off because the redstone line gets broken. Circuit breaker, just like that. So it's a very easy one. Redstone lines, two repeaters on different delays. This one you probably want on the normal 0 or 1 tick delay. This one, you can do it on a 2 tick delay. It'll shorten your pulse. Put it on a 3 tick delay, and it will make it a little longer. 4 tick delay, longest pulse you got. You see, we're using levers here because the levers create a steady redstone signal, similar to how that hopper clock would do. All right, this one here, it's in case you want to need to fit it into this sort of size. So I'm using cobblestone because it's quick and dirty. Everything's made of cobblestone and quick and dirty because sometimes you just don't have time to you know run up a bunch of CSA approved orange concrete for your circuitry. You know what I'm saying? So we're just gonna we're just using cobblestone here. But anything, and it could be any block. It doesn't have to be cobblestone. And this layer can be like in the ground, and it's only too high that way, and so on. So you can find ways to compact these circuits pretty good. Same idea. Pulse. And what this is doing is I have no idea what this is doing. So it's pretty simple to build. Nothing exotic here. Um, yeah, just copy that. Works good. All right. So now let's say you want to do exactly the opposite thing. Your signal is on constantly, and you want to flash it off for just a second. Right, so we're going to use a similar idea to the circuit breaker, but this time we're going to have a constant power source powering the longer delay repeater as opposed to power source coming into the shorter delay repeater, if that makes any sense. I'm using um, a wood button. If you use a stone button, it'll go faster. This is just to give you a good idea of how it works. So um, when you push the button, nothing actually happens, and then when you release the button, it like when the button is releasing itself, it turns off the light for a split second. Very useful in certain kind of doors, things like that. We're gonna actually see an application of this sort of thing shortly towards the end. All right, so now I think we're gonna do something here that some of you may have had problems with in the past. I'm gonna show you how to fix that. So just grab some random block. Let's say you got one of those pumpkin or melon farms where the observer's watching where the pumpkin's gonna grow, and then the pumpkin grows, right? Grows, and then your machine has a heart attack, right? We don't want that. It's really annoying for everybody. Just break that, right? So if you've had that problem, here's how to fix it. Very easy. It's a repeater locking circuit. So when your pumpkin grows, it only pulses one time, right? Only one time. How that happens is basically there's just enough delay in repeaters, and depending on your whole setup, you might have to adjust these. It might take some fine tuning, right? Like it can be a little on one tick and four ticks it works, but if you put it on two ticks, in my case, it does its thing, and if you put it on three ticks, it becomes what do you call it? Infinitely powered, and you have to break redstone, and it's not super fantastic. Um, so it might take a little bit of elbow grease to figure out where you need to set your delays. So 1 and 4 in this particular case works, but I've had it where 2 works and 4 doesn't, and so on. Okay, so we've done the thing where you turn a steady state into a pulse. We've done a thing where you turn off a thing that's constantly on for a split second. We've fixed your observer piston infinite loop of nonsense problem. Now we're going to look at making a short pulse longer. That's always a very useful thing to have. So what we have here is very simple. Very simple. That's your output. That's your input. It's just a connected loop of comparators. That's what they're called, comparators. You push the button. It's called a fade pulse extender or something like that. They got fancy words for all these things. They're not really important. As long as you know that that's what you got to do, get your light to stay on for a few more seconds than it would otherwise stay on. That's useful. Sometimes you have pulse go in and you want it to pulse twice for a single input pulse. Why you'd want to do that? I'm sure there's some very good reason why you'd want to do that. But just in case you want to know how to do that, it's this way. Your signal comes in, observer sees it, pulses, and then pulses again. In this case, it's the button. It's turning on the redstone dust, observer seeing it, pulsing once, then the redstone dust turns off, observer sees that, pulses again. Sort of like exactly the opposite of what this is. The thing that only makes it pulse once when it sees a bunch of things. So it can't. It's pretty simple. There are more complicated designs, but this one, it's a good breadcrumb to get you going if you need it. And then finally, we're going to do a pulse divider. And ignore everything from here to the left. That's just so that when the pulse comes in at one tick instead of longer because the button ticks and all that stuff. Um, Essentially, what happens is inside these hoppers, there's a single item, a lever, I think in my case. I don't know. When you pulse a single pulse, a one tick pulse, you give the hopper just enough time because it all this redstone turns off. The hopper gets just enough time to move the item to the next hopper. When the item finally gets to the dropper, it takes the reading, um, and then it outputs it to the lamp. So effectively, what you have is for every 6 pulses here, you're going to get one blink of the light. There's repeaters here just because the signal coming out of this comparator is relatively weak because it's a stackable item that's in there. If you put a non-stackable item, it probably gives you a stronger output, so you can put your repeater further out. Yeah. So if that wasn't too much information for you, I'll just give you a brief look at this little part here. This takes your pulse from your button or your input and reduces it to 1 tick because redstone transmits instantaneously and a piston has a tiny bit of delay before it extends. So when the piston extends, it actually cuts the redstone line, which has only been powered for a single tick, which is how long it takes the piston to deploy, and that single tick will turn off all of this and move the item one hopper down the chain. The point being is that this is an entirely different circuit. There's nothing to do with that other than we needed to condition our pulse to be only 1 tick long in order for this circuit to work. So if your whatever you're doing has a longer pulse than 1 tick, this will actually let the item flow much further through the chain than otherwise. Um, Basically, if you put a button on the end of this thing instead of having this whole circuit here, 2 button pushes will get you the light to blink, and not 6, which is not the desired outcome. So let's see if I reset this good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Haha! Super cool. Somehow I feel like that was 5 ticks, but whatever. 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 It's quick and dirty. It's not quick and perfect. Quick and dirty. Works, right? Does the job. It blinked once every bunch of clicks. That's what matters. If you liked what you saw, if you learned something, if you had a good time, if you want to see more of these things, consider liking, subscribing. For now, that's all we got. And I've been Brutal Cubes. Have a good day.